we were asked to do a master plan for the entire city of St. Louis. And when we did that plan, and we did a whole bunch of studies for the then director of planning for the city was Norman Murdoch, who had come to St. Louis and stayed here for a short time, a very interesting, very smart man. And we did all the studies, and we had economists and urban planners and designers and landscapers and me as the lawyer working on all these ideas. And then we had to come up with an overarching report, which was a strategic plan for the city of St. Louis. And frankly, we got blasted when it was, before it was vetted through the agencies of the city, somehow it got released. And that plan talked about 3 areas for the city. It talked about areas that had great potential and were secure. It talked about areas that were hanging on the edge. And then it talked about areas that were called, and I wrote part of that document, a good bit of it, they were called depletion areas. They were areas, and that covered the whole city of St. Louis. That report was leaked to the newspapers, and it created a controversy. It almost put us under as a business because of the outcry about the depletion areas. The theory that we came up with was a 3-part strategy. Downtown was identified as a core area that had to be kept. The medical center was another one. St. Louis University was another one. You have a string going straight west from the arch at that point of core areas. The Central West End residential areas that were a little broader. It was getting a little Forest Park. South Side was an area that needed help. Manchester Choteau area was called. It's now the Grove. I looked at the report we did for that recently. It's one of the reports that we were really dead wrong about. It was a light industrial and commercial area. It was hanging by a thread at that point. The businesses, Bernard Paper was there, Manchester Choteau, but Manchester Bank was there. They were not doing very well. Hord Hardin was the president of that bank, and they sold out, and that corner of Manchester and Choteau sort of started to fall apart. Well, we did a plan for that area, and we hoped to revitalize it as a light industrial area again, and we were wrong.
How would you have known?
We didn't know. We thought it because some of the businesses there were old businesses and they were failing, but they needed help. And we thought the city ought to help them out, invest. We were wrong. It became one of the worst neighborhoods along Manchester from Choteau going west. It was just terrible. And the idea of it becoming an entertainment area today, which is what it is, I was on the board and was the lawyer for Beyond Housing. When Beyond Housing bought the building on Manchester there, I thought Chris Krameyer was nuts, absolutely crazy. I said, it's a dangerous area, it's terrible. And Chris he's been there 25 years. He was a young executive director, and he was like some of these other people. He was some people thought he was a huckster for low-income housing. He was a visionary about low-income housing. He did.
And that, I know Chris, yeah, he's a great guy. The third area.
The third areas were the depletion areas. And what we said was parts of North St. Louis were becoming absolute wastelands, and that the city did not have the resources to service all those areas and invest in all these areas. It just didn't have the money. The population of the city of St. Louis had fallen from 800 and some thousand to 400 and some thousand to now what, 325,000, whatever it is. And those neighborhoods had started to see the migration of the population, which was often white. Crown Candy area was on the east end of it. It was starting to fall apart, going straight out what became Martin Luther King. And we said, you're going to have to make a choice. It's a hard choice. This was triage.
And of course, all the fallout comes because of the racial implications.
Oh, it was terrible. We never got another major city contract as a firm it was really a big contract after that because of the racial aspects of it. And it was a colorblind strategy, and it was a strategy that was not supposed to be leaked to the press. It was supposed to be internally reviewed by the professional staff at the city and the mayor's office and the alderman, and then it was supposed to be revised based on their reaction. And I think their reaction, looking back on it now after all these years, their reaction would have been they wouldn't have liked it. But it was based on economic reality, which is the city doesn't have the resources to help all these areas. There were areas of South St. Louis down near Tower Grove that needed help. There was no question about it. And there were areas around the Botanical Garden there too that needed help, which are today good areas that were teetering on the brink of falling apart. And we said, you got only so much money. What are you going to do with it? It was sadly like having three cars. One was solid and doing well. It was fine. It just needed some repairs every once in a while when you dinged it up. It was a good family car to go to events with. The second area was a car. It was a good car, but it was getting old and it needed body work and this and that. And the third car was a rusty Hulk, and it was falling apart. I've never used that analogy before, but that's a good way to explain what it was. It didn't appear to us as the planners, and we were asked to come up with the plan. And I think having an outside consultant do it was a necessity. It was a landmine, but the fact of the matter was those areas did fall into each of those categories anyway. Even though the politics has tried to keep resources going to those depletion areas, as I called them, the fact of the matter is it hasn't been enough money.